We're live.
All right, thank you. We have time at 6 p.m. Will you stand with me and join in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Houston, would you like to call the roll?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Mr. Raymert?
Here.
Mrs. Reed?
Here.
Mr. Stubbs? Here. All are present. This is a special meeting, the purpose of which is to meet with representatives from the City of Germantown, the Village of Farmersville, and Jackson Township to discuss a proposed joint economic development district at the southwest corner of Manning Road and Germantown Farmersville Pike for land owned by the Valley View School District.
Thank you, Mr. Houston. Is Brenda on the call?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. It looks like we have Brian, and is Nick by chance on the call as well, or Mike Moyer?
Mike Moyer's right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Mike. Nick is on now. Okay. So it looks like we have all four parties represented. I'll start going through some of the steps that we had noted on the last meeting, and you guys help me if we've done those steps. I know last time we had met, Brenda, you were still looking for some parcel information. When I look at the contract today, I see that there is parcel information in there. Is it complete now, or are you good on that piece of it?
I assume it's complete, although I am not in a position to know that.
Okay. We'll have Haley review what's in the packet and make sure that she confirms that everything's consistent with the way it stands right now with the county. Moving on to the next one, I know, Brian, you had sent over the draft petitions to the school, and we're looking to potentially get on the agenda with the school for a board meeting. Were you able to get any feedback there?
They did not have any feedback. So we also had put together a little kind of a one-pager explaining the next steps in the process. Mr. Richards was going to let us know if they had any comments, and from what I understand, they were generally supportive and had no questions for us.
Okay. I think the next step was, Brenda, you had, or we're going to distribute the draft contract and the exhibits as well as the economic development plan over to the county prosecutors. And I think I'd seen an email you had gotten at least feedback from one of them. Can you tell us where that stands?
So I did circulate an updated version, and I got comments from Tom Schiff, the Germantown Law Director, and those have been addressed, and we circulated that again on Friday, and Brian sent some comments today. I have not heard anything from the county prosecutor or anybody else's attorney or legal counsel.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll get into that, probably hear directly some of the comments that were made. I think a couple of you may have had some corrections or edits. I guess at that point, you think you're going to, obviously you'll recirculate and tell them there's a few edits, but I mean, what's your plan if they don't respond, or we just, I think we have to get a positive confirmation out of them, correct?
Well, right, that's up to each of the political subdivisions before they approve it to make sure their legal counsel is okay with moving forward. So, yeah, I mean, we can continue to edit and circulate until everybody's done. If nobody is paying attention or responding, then that the political subdivisions have to decide, do they want to go ahead and hold the public hearing if their legal counsel is not responding.
Yeah.
And I do not have, I have been, on behalf of the townships, I've been sending it periodically to Nathaniel Peterson in the prosecutor's office, but I don't know, I assume Farmersville is sending it to its legal counsel, as I do not have contact information for that person. And if the townships are engaging someone besides the prosecutor's office, they either need to send it directly there or get me contact information for any other legal counsel.
We are sending it to our legal counsel.
Okay.
Okay. So, as far as I can tell, I guess tonight what we need to do is go through the edits that were proposed, Brian, that you'd sent over today, as well as any other edits that anybody has. And I guess it's still buttoning up this contract, because I think, Brenda, next steps after this is get the circulation, get the legal counsels to sign off that they're aligned to it, and then schedule a public hearing. Is that correct?
Right. And then we have to notice the public hearing and so forth. And then, right, get with the schools about the petition.
Okay. And you said that, I'm sorry to reference him by this name, but Schiff had sent over some edits. Was that in Brian's latest draft, do you know? Because I'm looking at Brian's draft.
No, we dealt with those and put them into the draft that Nancy sent out on Friday.
Okay. So they are included. I mean, they're already enrolled in there.
I built mine
Yeah.
on top of that version, yes. And Tom's our law director. His comments were relatively minor, just a few kind of nitpicky things here and there.
Yeah, it looks like he was just adding
clarifications and bringing us into the modern age to provide for sort of electronic notices and postings and those kinds of things. Yeah.
It's Schiff. What is the gentleman's name? Tom Schiff. Okay, that's who you're talking about. His edits were just clarifications primarily, correct? I mean, there was nothing of dramatic substance or anything in there that I saw from his edits, correct?
Correct.
Right, yeah, I didn't think so.
Brian, do you want, I guess, unless anybody else, and I guess I should probably stop for a second here. We're having a public meeting, and open this up for public comment if we have any public comments to get us started. So if you have any comments, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and any comments.
Nobody beside me?
Will we have an opportunity later on?
Generally, we don't do that, but if you guys have something imperative, we can make that happen.
Okay.
Mark Cross, 7444 South Stivers Road, Germantown. Can they hear me okay?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That right there is a speaker. So when you,
Microphone.
or microphone, sorry.
So the first thing, I attended the high school, school board meeting on 6/14, and there were a few high points that relate to the JED that I'd like to share. So an architect has been hired for the schools. Mr. Richard showed an animation of a drone-like pass over the new buildings. He also presented a concept drawing of the new buildings that was produced after consultation with the teachers and the staff. He said he was hesitant to release the drawing, though, to the website since it was very preliminary and he didn't want people thinking this is going to be the final draft and start complaining. So he didn't really do anything. They still plan on breaking ground in spring of 2022 with an opening in fall 24. Then one of the board members asked about skyrocketing construction cost. And this was addressed a little bit, and this is actually in the Dayton Daily News today. We're talking about skyrocketing construction costs for homes, but also for commercial properties. So that may affect this whole timeline if they can't, line up the contractors to get the work done by that time. Plus, I don't know if it's probably going to escalate the costs. So are they going to have to start to delete things from the plan, which may happen. During the meeting, I did ask one of the administrative employees if there had any discussion of the proposed JED. And basically, she said, the reply that there was a discussion earlier meetings and they decided it was not a school issue, really a municipality issue. So again, there really doesn't seem to be any problem with the JED as far as the school board. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. The treasurer was able to release the fiscal year 2021 revenue expense figures. The total wages for 2021 turned out to be $10,147,610. So if you use this figure, when all the personnel moves to township using that figure at 1.5%, you're talking $152,000, $152,139. So that's much higher than originally, I think, what you guys had thought, and that's going to be several years down the line. So that will, if this goes through, that will benefit. The good news is that the $28 million in bonds have been sold at a 2.41% interest rate, and that will be able to pay off the bonds in 32 years versus 37 years. So they're actually going to save 5 years worth of interest on that. And the treasurer said that in a few months after the bond sale, the millage should actually go down below 5%. Right now it's 5.5%. So Mark may know a little bit more about the bond sale. But, the other thing they noted was that the incoming kindergarten class is 20% bigger. It's going to be 150 people. They actually had to hire the seventh kindergarten teacher. Basically, getting back to the JED, you know, as you may know, I have no employee. I know no employees. They're not in, and you know, no employees are in my family, relatives. So I have really no skin in the game. But I have not seen the contract or the economic development plan. So some of these issues may have been resolved, but I'm still concerned about several things. The first concern, and we had talked about this before, is the purpose justified in the ORC? Or is basically just kind of boilerplate language so vague that allows almost anything as a purpose, which it seems like some of the contracts that I read from around the state. The second concern, has there been any final determination on what will be the contribution of each entity to the JED, and are these contributions allowable under ORC 715.72? 715.72 states, the contract creating a JED shall provide for the amount or nature of the contribution of each contracting party to the development and operation of the district, and may provide for the sharing of the costs of the operation and improvements of the district. The contribution of money to cover the legal and administrative cost of setting up the JED that has nothing to do with the development and operation of the district be considered as following the guidelines sent up by 715.72. And that would really be a question for the lawyer. She wants to chime in. My third concern, and you've discussed this a little bit too, will the JED actually provide any benefit to the schools, teachers? Oh. Let's start that again. No problem. Will the JED actually provide any benefit to the schools, teachers, or staff that will work within the JED property? This concept of using the proceeds of the income tax generated within a JED to improve the JED district seems so important that it is noted twice in the ORC. ORC 715.72F3 states the contract shall include an economic development plan for the district that consists of a schedule for the provision of new, expanded, or additional services, facilities, or improvements. And in reference to the contract itself, ORC 715.72 I-1A again states, and this is in reference to the documents available for public inspection, a copy of the contract created district, including the economic development plan for the provision of new, expanded, or additional services, facilities, or improvements described in Division 3 of this section. So I don't know what's in the contract and what's in the economic development plan, but again, it all kind of centers on providing something to that district, not taking the money, putting it in general fund. So why am I bringing these issues up? Basically, my idea is the contract and the economic development plan should be bulletproof to withstand challenges. Example, what happens in 5 to 10 years if you get a new group of trustees, one of whom has several relatives that work at the school, and they decide that I'm tired of my relatives having to pay this income tax? I think that Councilor Waymer talked about if one of the, especially German Township, would back out of the JED, it would be null and void. Is that correct, Councilor? Or?
Yes, the JED cannot be sustained without German Township as a party. The other parties may come and go as long as they don't all go, but German Township is a critical, necessary party.
Yeah, so again, And that's why, again, making the contract kind of bulletproof, that no one can, say, hey, you're not doing what you're supposed to do, that you set up this 5 years or 10 years ago to do, because you're not providing any benefit to the JED, the JED property. But also, looking on the other side, there's really been very little opposition to this. And you and I know, look who's here. You get 5 people at a meeting. And nobody, if you talk to people about JED, they have no idea what you're talking about most of the time, because nobody really cares, which is good and bad. They should care, I think, because it has a far-reaching effect. So, so how do you make sure this contract and economic plan follow the ORC? You make sure that it follows the ORC, that you look at the 715.72 and those, as far as the contributions, as far as what the money is going to be used for, follow the ORC, because it doesn't seem like right now, and again, I haven't seen the contract, so I don't really know. It doesn't seem like that the contract is following those protocols. Another solution, which would be more difficult, you let the people vote on the JED. One of you decides, I'm going to vote against this, and let the people vote. And that's certainly one option. That's the harder option. That's the more expensive option. But if you truly believe that these tax increases should be voted on by the entire German Township, probably the fairest way. And I did talk to the Board of Elections. If you would ever put it on the ballot, if it's a regular election, we have 5 precincts, 3 precincts in Germantown, 2 precincts in German Township. To put an issue on the ballot, it's $1,200 a precinct. So if that's the only issue on the ballot, which would be like a special election, it would be $6,000 to run that election, which is pretty high. Now, take, for instance, this upcoming November election, we've got the Parks District, or the park levy on the ballot. So it would be about half of that $3,000. Still a big amount, but, that's for you guys to decide what, if you want to have that. But again, if you get the public to vote on it, they vote unanimously for it, then it's bulletproof. There's nobody that's going to say 5 years ago, well, 80% of the population voted for this. One possibility, a difficult possibility, especially in election years. So that's really all I have. Any questions?
No, thank you for doing the research and taking the time. Is there any way to get him a copy of the contract? It's technically a public record. So.
It's up to you. I mean, I can wait until the public.
No, I mean, it's a public document.
It's I would be interested in having, if councilor think that's okay.
I don't have an issue with it.
I mean, a simple public record request would be given it to you for sure.
Yeah, I could do that, Mark, just to have a public record for the proposed JED contract.
And the economic development.
And the economic development, because that's certainly an important part of that too. So. And again, I'm not for or against this, but it needs to be done correctly, and that's why I've talked about before. It's a big deal. It's a big decision you guys are going to have to make, because it could go on for years and years. So anyway, and in my opinion, going by the ORC, there has to be some benefit to the JED property. It can't just be a matter of, I want to take this money because I want to reimburse Germantown and Farmersville for lost income tax. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay. Appreciate the comments. I mean, I think we've had some of these similar discussions before with your comments, and I appreciate that. I think we've actually spun on those topics multiple times and had, multiple questions to the lawyer on that specific topic, which is why, we've taken this long and I think done the prudent work to get here. But I mean, I'm not going to address it further than to say that, we had the lawyers now, the county prosecutors, those folks also reviewing it. So if we have multitudes of lawyers reviewing this in addition to all the folks here, I would hope that we would all be in agreement that it's justified based on what the laws are in the ORC. So does anyone else have any comments there before we move into reviewing your edits this evening?
Tyler, I've got one. Just want to elaborate a little bit on my comment earlier. We've been sending this to our legal counsel, and her comments were probably similar to Germantown's counsel. No issues with it, likes the way it's written, pointed out some minor things, but the assumption was that, the legal team that we've hired would iron out those, grammatical errors and things like that before it's all said and done and put out to the public. So no issues on our end. Council's all reviewed it too, and they all like the way it's written. So I just wanted to elaborate on the earlier comment that I've passed it along.
I just want to congratulate Nick. He got an award for the top 40 under 40 as far as business. So congratulations, Nick.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Is there any other comments before we move into reviewing the contract? Okay, Brian, I think probably the most efficient way is allow you just to take over from here and walk through the edits that you had this evening.
Yeah, I'll try to go quickly. Some of these are real minor, like, page 1, it's just adding S on Farmersville there. So we'll keep scrolling to page, to page 3. At least it's page 3 for me. So this is, I can go either way on this. As I was reading through it and I looked at that dollar figure that we set up there, the $2,500 for the board to come back for approval from each of the jurisdictions. I went back and looked up the audit costs and then the insurance costs, and we're talking $3,500 for the audit and $2,300 for the insurance costs. I don't know, and I may have pushed for a lower dollar. I don't even remember when I stood on this 2 months ago. To me, I think we want them to be able to cover the very fundamental expenses that they absolutely have to cover without coming to all 4 of us every single year. So I don't know if that's, probably $7,000 at a minimum, if we want them to be able to cover their bare minimum costs. If we don't, well, that's fine, but I don't know.
No, I think that's reasonable. I think the key here is that any obligation individually. I don't think it's in total. So I think we can set it, if you're saying the audit was estimated at 3,500 and that's the largest one, I think it's possible to set it at, 4,000. Is that the way you're thinking?
Right, yeah. Yeah, so that's a good point. That's would be individual expenses, so you could break them up. So yeah, at least 4,000, I would say that'd be a good number in there.
Okay, I don't have an issue. I mean, I guess it's just one of those things. Is it a good check and balance to potentially have in place that they, have to check back? But I mean, if we're going to appoint a board, they should be able to operate with what we already know to be normal expenditures. So I don't have a problem with 4,000. Does everyone follow along with what he's mentioning there? Is everyone okay with that?
I'm having a hard time understanding what he's saying.
Sure. In the opening language there.
The speaker, I'm having a hard time understanding him too.
And I'm sure other people are.
Okay.
It's just muffled from where I'm
I
sitting.
think we need to have everybody present at meetings now, since it's kind of over. So we're not dealing with not being able to understand people when they speak.
Understand, Brian, I don't know if you are using your cell phone or not, but if you can just be as close to the speaker or your microphone as possible. It is a little bit muffled, and also we're trying to project to the broader group at this point now.
Certainly, I can get closer. Yep. I intended on being there tonight, but my son had an activity my wife had to take him to, so I've got the youngest here. So this just worked out. I would rather be there though.
I'll iterate to the group on that point, and then we can move on after we discuss it. But he was just mentioning we have right now laid out $2,500 is the amount that the JED board could pay for any liability without coming back to the individual entities and requesting an increase on a payment amount. And so he was saying that the audit fee is estimated potentially at up to $3,500 per year. So the question was, should we raise that from $2,500 to at least be able to cover things that we know are going to happen every year, which such as an audit? And so the discussion is, do we want to raise it to something like $4,000, so they can pay for the audit fees or annual insurance and those types of costs?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
I agree, especially if we already know the cost is going to be roughly $3,500. It seems silly to go into the contract making it be less than that already.
I'm fine.
Good. Okay. It sounds like, Brenda, that change will be going to 4,000 unless there's anyone else that has another amount.
Okay, I will mark that.
All right, I'll keep going. Page 4 was the next comment. This is really a question for Brenda more than anything. In terms of Germantown's responsibility for maintaining the minutes, it talks about the documents relating to the formation of the district. Is Germantown going to need to maintain the minutes from these meetings that we've had over the past year? In other words, are we going to need to go backwards to capture all of that, or does it start once we kick off the public notices for the public hearing, just for our awareness, so we know, we can get with Mark or the township and get what we need, obviously from the trustee meetings? But when does that responsibility kick in?
Once the JED board is formed and starts having meetings. So this paragraph is saying that you're taking the lead on getting the contract prepared, the petitions prepared, all the legal documents to get the JED set up. You've engaged me to do that. Germantown is taking the lead on getting the documents. In terms of the public records, until the JED board is actually created, it doesn't have any public records. These right now are public records of the respective entities. German Township, because they've been holding most of the meetings, as well as, the other 3 parties who've been getting copies of these documents. But yeah, you do not have to go back and get minutes of all of the township meetings for purposes of the JED records. They'll have their own meeting minutes when they start having meetings, if and when they actually get approved and start.
Okay, that clarifies it. We will jump to page 6. This is tied to a handful of comments. I refer back to page B2 of the bylaws. I think this paragraph meets the intent of what we discussed as far as so for the very first JED meeting, there will be 4 members. Those 4 members have to pick the final person, the kind of at-large person. So for that first meeting, yes, 3 votes will be required to pass the resolution appointing the 5th member, correct? Once there's 5 members, it would require 4 votes to pass anything at the JED board. So I think this paragraph is correct. However, if you go to B2 of the bylaws, and then there's actually one other section, it talks to 3 votes, and actually one section talks to 2 votes. So just making sure we're consistent throughout with the number of votes required to pass a resolution.
Yeah, hold on. I think we changed that to 3 and did not, oh, wait a minute, should be required. Okay, it's, all right. I'm looking at page C3. A vote of 2 members is for a board that only has 3 members. So we need to change them both to a vote of 3 members in the bylaws and in the contract.
So let's see. So the contract clearly says if the board is composed of less than 5 members, a resolution must receive the affirmative vote of at least 3 members of the board.
Right.
If the board,
Oh, no, and if it's less than 5, yeah.
so if it's 5 members, what is the required vote for a resolution to be adopted?
Majority, so 3,
Okay.
unless you want a super majority of 4.
I mean, I'll leave that up to the group. I don't think we're gonna do something outside the bounds of what's traditionally done here. I just think we wanna make sure it's consistent throughout.
Right, yeah, we need to fix that.
All right, I'm gonna jump down to page 8. So this is probably the last group of fairly somewhat significant comments. We, at the top of page 9, we talk about the board shall enter into an agreement with Germantown or Farmersville to administer, collect, and enforce the income tax on behalf of the district. So we leave it up to the board to come to either Germantown or Farmersville, with the understanding Farmersville agreed to do it and wants to do it starting out with this JED. So when I jump back up to that last paragraph on page 8, we don't have that built-in flexibility, right? The board shall adopt by resolution the provisions of the income tax legislation of Farmersville. Do we need to build in that flexibility to say Farmersville or Germantown, if for whatever reason in the future Farmersville says, we can't do this, we're not going to do this anymore, go contract with Germantown? Because if that were to happen, we would want to, obviously, we would want them to incorporate the income tax legislation of Germantown if we were ever in that position.
And so you would pass a resolution, the JED board would then pass a resolution to amend the income tax code provisions, much like when, the city changes its income tax code, council passes a resolution to change it. So the JED
Right.
board could change those later if needed.
Okay. And that's good that they have the flexibility. I just wanted to make sure there's a couple other areas where we specifically talked to Farmersville that's in the actual contract. Is the JED board going to be able to change that even though it's stated specifically in the contract that, for example, Farmersville's income tax legislation, then on page 9, it talks to Farmersville's tax administrator shall serve as the administrator of the income tax. And I think further down, it talks to Farmersville's collection of the service fee.
Right. And if Farmersville drops out, then there's language in here that says all of their obligations transfer to Germantown, the other municipality. So then they would become the income tax collector and they would collect the money, distribute the money, et cetera. And then the
Right.
JED board would decide, do we still want to apply the Farmersville income tax or do we want to change that to Germantown?
Okay. As long as they have that flexibility.
And we're not, hey, real quick, we're not applying the Farmersville tax. We're actually collecting a different amount.
Right. So
Right, but you're applying your rule, but not your tax rate.
Yeah, Nick, it says that.
Gotcha.
It's other than the rate, the income tax legislation of Farmersville. So everything except for the rate. All right, I'm going to scroll. So Brenda, if you could just, this comment, it's page 10. The paragraph says the district territory shall have primacy over residential status relating to collection of the income tax derived from individual earnings within the district, notwithstanding the provisions of the Farmersville Income Tax Ordinance, which may provide to the contrary. So I think what that's saying is the Farmersville
Is you have to pay the JED first. Then
Right.
so it's sort of like you're paying, to any other city where you work. You pay that city. Where you live may or may not give you a credit against the tax that you owe where you live. And so this is just saying that even if the Farmersville Code says, oh, by the way, if you work in Dayton and live in Farmersville, you have to pay Farmersville first and then take a credit against Dayton, which is not really how it works under anybody's current code, but.
Right, okay. I think that is it for the contract. I'm gonna jump down to the bylaws just to see. Let's see, B2, that's the section where, talks to a vote of 3 members as necessary for any action taken by a vote of the board. So I think we've discussed that. The following comment on B3 is in that same lane. Just the number of board members required if they're going to call a special meeting. It was 3. Just a note, should it be 3 or 4? I think it sounds like we're going to push everything to 3, just a majority. Same comment at the bottom of B3, just clarifying the vote required. I think that will be 3 instead of 2. Let's see. Again, repeat comment on B4. Just the discussion about Fallersville versus Germantown. And B5, just to clean up from the, initially we had this as the secretary/treasurer for everything. Just delete that treasurer. B8, same 2 comments. I think that is all, other than the, a couple nitpicky grammatical things or formatting things. So that's all I had in this. I think everything else looks pretty good. I think moving forward, obviously, I don't know what the 3 of your plans are, whether you're running or not, but I would really hate to start this process completely over if there's an entirely different group of you. Hopefully not. But if there was, that needs to be that deadline as far as getting this thing knocked out. So at some point, and Tyler, this is your meeting, so I don't know what else you wanted to talk about tonight, but I think we do need to talk schedule and how we can knock this out here in the next 5 months.
Understand. Thanks for going through that. I appreciate you going through the fine-tooth comb there, because it does seem like you got, a few small edits that need to be made. Is there, before we move on to anything else though with schedule or any other topics, are there any other questions or edits on the contracts from anybody else that's reviewed it? Okay. So the only other thing I had noted about the contract that we haven't discussed ad nauseum before, just make sure, is that, Nick, I know you had done some discussions with your tax department. Are you guys buttoned up? Are you satisfied with the way it reads and everything on the taxes? Do you feel like there's any more you still need to discuss or come back to us on?
No, we're satisfied with how it reads. I mentioned in a previous meeting, we just got some change over there with a person retiring. Our new tax administrator has been training for just a week, so that is the biggest thing. But we've got a while till we have to worry about collecting this JED income tax. So I think we'll be in good shape.
Okay. On that, I guess let's talk calendar. One thing I just want to reiterate, because I think there was some comments earlier, Mr. Crawford, I should probably clarify just to make sure that the broader group understands. I think one thing is we have this initially set up in the contract to be 1.5% income tax for the first 5 years, which is through December of 26, I believe, and Brenda or anyone else is free to correct me if I'm wrong. And then the periods thereafter, which is the next 5 years, and then every 10-year contract after would be at 1.25%. So I think we've estimated the payroll tax or the payroll of the school to be $9.5 million. You were saying it's a little over 10 is what it was this year, and at 1.25%, that'd be $118,750. So it's a little bit more, maybe 125. We wanted to try to hopefully stay on a little bit more of the conservative side when we use these numbers. So I think we're in the same realm there.
I think his number is going to include the board office, the bus garage.
It definitely will include the board office,
Which is
for sure.
which is still going to be in Germantown and not moved.
Yeah.
Total payroll or total wages.
Right.
But I think we're pretty close on that. But as far as the timing thing, I mean, it's a fair question. I think, you know what, we had a building committee meeting here in the past month, and Nick's a part of this committee as well. But the timeline that they're telling us is still hoping to be in the school by by August of 24. So this should cover that 1.5% should cover that construction period and have about a year overlap there, hopefully. So hopefully a lot of those things seem like they're being addressed or been discussed before. As far as the timing, I guess, you know, what I've written down here as next steps, again, is just, again, go back and clean up this draft again for any comments that were made tonight. And then I guess for Brenda, recirculate those with the legal counsels. And I guess, Brenda, if you can tell us if you're having trouble with our individual counsels returning, so maybe we can reach out and just make sure that's reaching the right person. I know in our county prosecutor is a different person that is covering a lot of our, I guess, support now. So we need to get you that contact person, because although Nathaniel should have done that already, maybe you can go at it with a different angle with a second person that they've given us as a contact for German Township. So let us know on that once you get it cleaned up and start to recirculate those. Like I said, Nathaniel's still there as far as we're aware, so he should still be responsive, but we'll get you that. I'll make a note to send you over that contact person.
Okay. And then is it still Nathaniel for Jackson Township, or do you not know?
Yeah, it's the same for all townships in Montgomery County.
So it'll
Okay,
be the
and
new
then,
person.
Well, it'll be both. It'll
Oh.
be Nathaniel and new person. Nathaniel's still
Okay.
technically a person.
He has an assistant.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get you that contact information and maybe help out with Nathaniel. If you can get those drafts, I mean, to Brian's point, I guess we kind of worked this backwards, and there was still a fair amount of lead time here, but it is starting to get closer if we're trying to get these things approved and put in place before November. And so if we can get the drafts corrected and recirculated, I guess the biggest thing is once all the legal counsels have approved those drafts, then at that point in time, then we can give the public notice for the public hearing, which needs to be 30 days, correct?
Right, and it has to be published in the paper at least 30 days prior. So, yeah, so you got to get the notice prepared and ready and get it to the paper in time to get published at least 30 days in advance.
Okay. And then after that, allow for public comment, obviously, and then we decide if we want to revise or edit anything. If we do, we have to go back through that draft, send that back through legal counsel, get that approved, and then do another hearing 30 days later.
Right. I mean, if you're fixing typos, you don't. If you're fixing anything substantive, you have to have another hearing.
Okay. And then the NEs can vote on the JED. Okay. So, I guess you tell us what's reasonable to expect these edits to be completed. I mean, it's been going to take probably.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how many times you want to see it with how many different little edits. I mean, so I got Tom's edits, which have been made. Brian, I have yours, which we can make, but was it Farmersville who said their council has already reviewed it and has some small corrections? It would be helpful if those could get to me and I could make them at the same time as the ones we just discussed tonight, so that the next version that goes out is that much more complete before we then try to get the prosecutor's office to focus on it for the township.
Those corrections were just grammatical. So our legal counsel told us don't even bother spending time on that because their legal team will make sure that's all done in-house before it's finalized. So I don't know if that's the case, but she said that was standard practice.
It would be helpful if it was finalized for everybody. I mean, if they've noticed some typo that the rest of us haven't, and then they're going to fix it before you sign it, but it's not fixed in everybody else's copy, that's a little odd.
I can ask them to make those comments.
Yeah. Would you rather us try to get Nathaniel and his team to review this before you make the last round of edits, so it doesn't, if he has a few grammatical, you don't have to make it again and then send it out for circulation, or would you rather go ahead and get these all enrolled and then try to
I think it would be better. I mean, I think you're all getting tired of seeing this. It'd be better to get as many of the comments from as many of the sources as we can within the next week, and then get them all compiled and sent out so that you don't have to get a new one, you know, every week for the next.
Okay. I'll send a note to Anu and Nathaniel, our county prosecutors, and ask them to, review the contract, and I'll copy you on that so you're in contact with them, and hopefully they can get back with you. And then once you get all the drafts or all the edits, you can then make one last draft for review. Unfortunately, Brian, I mean, unless someone else has a better plan, I mean, I think that needs to be like a 30-day period before we schedule the next one of these meetings, with the hope that we can have all of the drafts enrolled in the next 30 days, as long as we all stay vigilant, making sure that Brenda's getting what she needs.
Yeah.
After she gets that, I mean, once they're all the edits are in there, I mean, at that point, then we need to have a meeting so we can decide when we're going to put the public hearing and who's going to schedule it and those types of things, and where it's going to be held. I mean, I guess in the meantime, we had talked about holding this at the school. You've been in touch with the school. Would you mind to try to coordinate with them and confirm that that's still not an issue, especially now that the COVID restrictions have lightened up?
Yeah, I can verify with them. They,
the hope would be.
So I think last time we had a conversation, they were anticipating the July to August time frame, and they said that would be fine. They would accommodate us.
Okay. Now, I mean, it looks like it's going to be late August if we don't meet back for a month, which is about probably as long as it's going to take to get these reviewed and the edits enrolled. Okay. Is there any other topics anyone else wants to discuss, or anything else to cover? We have a public comment. Give us 1 second here.
Actually, I've got a couple of questions. Mark Keener, 7865 Jamaica Road. I was having a little trouble understanding Mr. Wapsig, a little muffled on the speaker, but it sounds like the plan is that the entities are going to contribute $4,000 a year back to the JED. Is that the contributions that are legally required?
It's, I believe it's $15,000 is the contribution to start it out, and then the JED will be operating based on the income and expenses that they collect.
So the entities will contribute annually to cover the JED expenses?
No.
Okay.
The JED expenses will come out of the JED income tax that's collected before it's distributed to parties.
Okay, and that makes sense. What I thought I was hearing on the muffled speaker was different. So thank you for that clarification. Also, I've got a question for you, Counselor. With regards to the unanimous vote that's required by the townships, if a member abstains, does that count? Is it now a non-unanimous vote?
Right, it is a non-unanimous vote if a trustee abstains,
Okay.
and then it would have to go on the ballot.
All right. And then how long does it take to get, I mean, just and go on to the ballot on the next election cycle?
Yeah, it depends. As somebody was mentioning earlier, if you go on a special election ballot, then you have to potentially pay if no one else is on, versus if you go on in November, the cost is substantially less. So the parties would kind of have to decide what election do you want it on, but you have to get it to the Board of Elections at least 90 days prior to the election that you're targeting. So in this case, to get on this November, you have to know by the 1st of August, because I think the filing deadline is like August 4th, and I'm not sure we're going to be there yet. We won't have had the public hearing in the 30 days. So now you're looking at potentially the May election next year, and then the parties have to figure out, do they, you know, do they want to be on the May election? Is it going to cost them more than they want to bear versus waiting until next November? Is that too long? So yes, one of the elections, but you have to get it to the Board of Elections at least 90 days in advance.
Okay. And a follow-up question to that, when you were here at the township, gosh, about a year and a half ago when all this process started.
A little while ago.
There was it was a while ago. So there was a question, if it had to go to a vote, whether or not the vote would include both the incorporated and unincorporated parts of the township, or if only because the trustees who, you know, since the facility of the JED is in the unincorporated part of the township, if the incorporated part of the township, i.e. the city of Germantown, who is going to pass this, I would assume, since have represented their citizens, if their citizens would still get a vote for the unincorporated.
Right. If their citizens vote on the township trustees and the township tax levies, they would vote on this. So if they're still part of the township and vote on other township matters, this would be on a ballot for like any other township issue.
Okay, and that was my assumption. I just wanted to clarify. So I appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Sure. Sure.
Okay. So is there any other comments before we get into the meat of the schedule here? I think we're in agreement with the next steps.
I did research, this parcel. Do you want that information now?
Yeah.
So it all looks good. All of the parcel IDs are listed. However, there are 3 that do not have a description. Those 3 are not listed on the county site, so they would have to be obtained, contact the county directly or the Board of Education directly. I don't know if you guys want all of the legal descriptions listed or just the parcel ID.
Yeah, we need a legal description for each of the parcel IDs that we have listed.
So I can give you the 3 that are not listed. The parcel ID ending in 0048, 0049, and 0036. The legal description is not listed. All others are listed.
Do those need to be resurveyed?
No, they do not need to be resurveyed. The legal descriptions are just not listed on the auditor's site for whatever reason. So like I said, they'll just have to go either to the Board of Education, which I would hope have their legal descriptions, or the county directly.
And this is before there was before some parcels are joining, is that right?
Correct, this is after that.
This is after, okay.
Yeah. They have not officially combined all the parcels yet. And last time I talked to Mr. Richards, the superintendent, he said that they had planned to, but they were not combined at this time.
Okay. So as far as schedule, I guess the goal is for the next 30 days to get all the drafts back to Brenda and her team. I guess, I mean, if we can get them back to you within 2 weeks, that'll give you 2 weeks to review, make any of the edits and enroll them, get them back to the group. Brenda, does that sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess let's attempt to make sure that, you know, we've got, Nick, you said you'll pass over any comments coming from Farmersville. I'll reach out to Nathaniel for Jackson Township and German Township, and then you've already got Tom Schiff's. And so hopefully we can try to get those back to you by July 1, with the intent that you'll have a couple weeks then before our next meeting to put those in and send them out to this broader group before our next meeting. With that, I guess we want to work on the schedule for our next meeting, the timing.
Two weeks after that would be 15 July. You want to shoot for that? That's another Thursday.
I'm gone starting the 15th through the 19th.
I will also be out of town.
And that is Fair Week.
You're out of town that week?
I'm out of town that week, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be back like the 20th.
I'll be out of town the following week.
Yeah, I don't know that it makes sense to accelerate it because I'm kind of concerned that there's going to be other people on vacations reviewing this and we're running the same issue. Does it look like Thursday the 29th of July?
I can do that.
That
Works for me.
Thursday the 29th, 6 p.m. on Thursday the 29th. Is that okay for everyone else?
Yes.
Okay. Let's really do our best to make sure we can get these comments back to Brenda. Definitely by no later than the 10th of July. And I wish she has ample time to circulate that, and then we should be on track. And then at that meeting, I guess the anticipation is that we come in and all agree that there are no further edits, and then we start scheduling for the public hearing. And now, do we need to send the petition over to the school ahead of the public hearing, or what do you recommend there, Brenda? I know we've sent draft petitions over there.
Right, and so typically either the petition is sent, before the public hearing, when you schedule it and start to notice that you send the petitions over to the school, you can send them over earlier. We can send them over in July. We can send them over after the meeting on the 29th if we all say we're ready, we're good, and then we can send them over. Ideally, we'd like to have them back signed, during that 30-day notice period before we actually hold the public hearing, but we don't actually have to have them by the public hearing. We have to have them before anybody adopts the approving ordinance/resolution for it.
Okay. That makes sense. Okay. It's still obviously a school board meeting in that 30-day period, so we just need to make sure, Brian, that we get them the petitions ahead of that if possible.
Yeah, so that would be 9 August. We want them to take it on 9 August, the 9 August meeting.
Yeah, there was another follow-up about holding it at the school of public hearing. I guess when you reach out, can you ask, or maybe prime them that our objective is to get it over to them by that school board meeting in August, that might need to be a agenda topic, that If worse, we withdraw, but at least get on the agenda.
Right.
Okay. Okay. July 29th at 6 PM. Is there any other topics before we close?
I have a question on timing. If we do July 29th, Republic, then nothing required for
Sorry, you cut out, Nick. Can you
municipality
restate?
vote. I'm sorry. If we go July 29, I'm just playing the dates out. We add the time required for public review, then add the time required for municipality vote. That would, if we would need to go to ballot in any municipality, we would be looking at 2022 May ballot, right? We wouldn't be looking at November.
Right, we're
Yeah,
not gonna make the November 2021 ballot.
Okay, that's fine. I was just
Yeah,
making sure that was the case.
yeah.
Yeah, I think right now we would have, I mean, it would be, you'd have to almost rush it, but if there was, edits from the public hearing and when you had to do another 30-day, notice, we could still get this vote in before November, but, as far as making the ballot, my understanding is that ship's kind of sailed already.
Right, because that date is August 4th, and if we're not meeting again until the 29th, you're not even going to have a final document to send to the Board of Elections. You won't have had your public hearing before you send it to the Board of Elections. So, yeah, you're going to miss that August 4th filing deadline for the November election at this point.
So I think we get everything, every comment that the attorneys or your councils or trustees, anybody has by 10 November, right? Or 10 July. Everything to Brenda no later than 10 July.
I would shoot for July 1st, even as things might spill over, but for Brenda's purposes, make sure it's done by 10th of July.
Yeah.
We'll target it first still.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Can we have everybody in attendance on the 29th of July?
Fair point. 29th of July, please try to be in attendance if possible, at all possible.
I plan on being there.
Baseball
At
season
German
is over. I'll be
Township.
there.
At the township offices, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I can do that.
Brenda, I mean, we understand we're working under a very light contract with you, and I don't want to obviously mandate, I'm not speaking for the whole group, so anybody else that can comment on this, but I mean, it'd be great if you could attend, but obviously that's not mandatory for you.
I can understand everything she said.
Yeah.
So she could.
Yeah, and everyone in the room is nodding that they can understand you very well, so you haven't been a problem to hear tonight, so if you would like to attend virtually, we more than understand that.
Even remotely,
Okay.
I can hear her clearly.
Well, that's nice. I'm at the office on the landline, not a cell phone, so that might help.
Sure. Okay, with that in mind, I'll make a motion to close tonight's public meeting.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned at 7:03 PM. Good night, everyone.